Yeah, frameworks and mission state. Well, not mission state statements, but kind of like internalizing values. I mean, look, that's the whole point. I mean, values, words are great. They're great to to help us think. But at the end
Yeah.
of the day, they still are just words.
Yeah. That's what it can't be the whole process. It's like these words help us clarify what's going on and be real specific about what we mean. And once we create meaning, that's great. That's a great jumping off point to say, all right, I now know what I want. And what I want is labeled this, it's called this, and it's over there. Now we can move on to the next stage and start saying, all right, what's our plan? How can we prepare? Let's put some action. I heard a quote that says you had like one brain and two hands. So get to work. Like, okay, I'll give you that. That's big. I was like, that makes sense to me. Plan it once, get out there, start doing it.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, action should be, that's what it's all for, because you got to do some action.
The only thing that changes the world is the action. So certainly, it's got to be that.
I mean, people would love if it didn't have to be that way. I mean, to me, that's almost like I wouldn't call it robotics. People love getting more for. That's just how it works. This is the whole thing about evolution. Why do we even need these things if we don't want more for less? For the most part, some people, it's almost that we've had so much evolution and advancement in technology that some people love to go back, and maybe it gives them a sense of comfort. But some people love to go back for some sense of fun or what have you. I kind of understand, but like people who live off the grid, for an example, I guess I get it. You want to get back to Mother Nature. It makes you feel comfortable. Maybe you grew up a certain way with certain types of, I wouldn't even call them traditions, but just means to survival. Maybe it just makes you, or maybe you didn't grow up that way. Maybe you feel like you need to get back to things like that to ground yourself. Maybe you don't like how society works, in big cities, and then you just feel like, oh, let me go cut down some trees with an axe. It'll make me feel grounded.
It definitely gives you a lot more focus. When you can limit your focus to just one thing, you can get a lot more feeling of a sense of control over your environment. Even though it's not true, it's enough to make you, with a lot less options, there's a lot less to worry about.
It's true. I mean, yeah, a lot less options, but a lot more work.
If you had to make a chicken sandwich from scratch, it would cost you like $1,600, and it would take you like a few months. It's like, yeah, I'd rather just go to the drive-thru. Let's not fight this. We get it. Things are hard. Let's not pretend that they're not. Let's all acknowledge everybody got limits. This is one of them.
Yeah, I guess the thing that keeps me not addicted, but I love cities because that's where the competition is. I love evolution. I just love advancement. Going back is nothing, but you could say it's hard, but at some point in time. So let me frame this a little better. So I watch a lot of shows like Life Below Zero and things like that. And I wouldn't say a lot of them, but some. Or Naked and Afraid. And I just always find it interesting that some people love to stick to the older traditions, but you got gasoline, or you got a lighter, or you got a boat. I mean, not just a boat, but a motorboat, or you got a snowmobile. You didn't keep everything. You took some of the newer stuff, and I'm not knocking them for it. I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that that's not all it is. It's not all I want to just go back to the older stuff. It's something else there. It can't be just I want to go back to the older stuff because you kept some of the newer stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, I think people like the idea of going back to quote unquote nature so they can find something simple, something that doesn't have a whole lot of extra inputs from other people. And be like, all right, if it's just me, this tree, this little plot of land, what do I got to do till I survive or have things that I want? What kind of things do I want? Little food, little clothing, little shelter. All right, that's enough for me right now. I feel like I'm back to nature. Like, I mean, I hear you. That's not actual nature, and that's fine. It's just a more simplified version of life. It's like, this is minimalism. I'm like, sort of. And that's fine. It's enough to keep you alive. And, it's part of the choices we get to make, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think that I wouldn't even call, it's not it's not getting back in touch with Mother Nature, because that's too, I guess colloquial is the word. It's too folksy in a sense of a saying to me. It's just that the way that it's not even, I don't think it's the way that humans are wired, the way that reality works. See, you got to do things to get the outcomes. And then so the way that we have to interact with the world gives us these senses of, I don't know, things like accomplishment. Oh, whatever it is, we have to do these activities to get the payoff. And then somehow we develop some kind of I don't know, chemical release because of these things. Like think about, I don't know, cleaning your room, doing something like cleaning your room, cleaning your house, or doing something or getting some feeling of accomplishment from something that doesn't give you an immediate payoff. Right. And so this is like, well, we've developed this feeling just because we've done this thing. And this thing doesn't necessarily lead to a direct payoff right now. So this is really just a feeling. It's a feeling of accomplishment. It's just, I mean, am I wrong or off track with this, or what you
I mean, everybody has needs, and some of these needs are psychological. Some of these psychological needs like really involve a feeling of agency, where people can get the sense that what they're doing matters and is actively giving them an extra bandwidth or sense of safety that says, if I have this need, I can meet it. And therefore, I don't have to worry about this anymore. And I think that's a helpful feeling of responsibility, safety, agency, whatever you want to call it. Those are things that I support people doing. It's always sad to have people not recognize these things are a limit. There's no such thing as absolute agency. There's no such thing as having all the power in the world to do anything you feel like. I'm like, that's not what we're doing here. You're just finding something that you want to grow in and then slowly taking the next step to make sure that you can progress here, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, but it's interesting because I think the psychological needs development. And that's kind of one of the things I like to just peel back the layers. And this is kind of a theory because I don't know that you can ever prove if this is right or wrong. I'm not necessarily sure. Because people might say, oh yeah, we have psychological needs. But I would say that, no, we have physical needs that developed into psychological needs. That's how I would look at it.
Interesting. How do you separate the two? How do you know which one came first?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know that I can prove this. Right.
Okay. That's fair. I'm just like, it's in the world of development, I would say that we start off as a mind in a body. And so they're both developing together. So I don't think the one can come before the other, but I do think one is dependent on the other. Like you can have all the psychological needs you want, but if you don't eat, it doesn't matter. So I'm like, you really do have to get to that eating eventually first. And then we can talk about what's next. Once you're alive, then we can start talking about how bad you feel. We can talk about that later.
Yeah. So to me, that's an indicator, right? Even
right.
Feeling bad or feeling compassion, feeling empathy, these are secondary things, in my opinion. These are not primary. Babies don't pop out the womb. They may like people, but they might squish a person or squish a bee, or they can't squish a person, but you know what I'm saying? It's just, this is a development. This is, once again, it's a theory. I don't know how you prove this. I have to operate on that theory that I don't accept when clinical people, whatever, psychologists, whatever, and they just think, oh, yeah, we have these desires. Well, we have these psychological needs or desires prior to the physical needs. Like, that's what I mean about the whole feeling of accomplishment. Hey, I know that I need this thing, and as I guess as I'm building, as my brain is allowed to think longer and longer range, I know that this piece that I'm putting in place is in line with me reaping rewards over the long term. And now I have or I guess a sense of accomplishment. I don't know. It's satisfaction. I don't know what you would really call it. But not because I'm directly tying that to this, it's because I'm subconsciously tying that to this. I think that you got, like you said, you got to start with eating first. Like, oh, we need shelter. Oh man, it's cold. Oh, it's cold. This hurts. Oh, I don't like this. That's to me where it starts.
Yeah.
Hey, oh, we're walking on this ground and my feet hurt and they're cut up from these rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make it's not even shoes at first, right? It's just let me protect my feet.
I need to protect the core long enough to be able to keep the blood flowing. All right, the blood's flowing again. It's going out to my extremities. My extremities are really cold and painful. Let's find something to cover that now. Make sure that'll work in an environment that is harsh. Oh,
Yeah, so that I mean, it's unfortunate to me that I don't think that I can actually prove that, but I guess this is going to have to be a belief that I have, and I could spar with anybody with these ideas, I, but I don't see how you get to psychological things before the physical things. If we look at single cell,
but if you're FI though, you're FI Dom, like you get how their experience overrides any other factors. So like the one data I have is how I feel. Therefore, even if I have to eat to survive, I felt hungry first, and therefore feelings are the only thing that's going on. I'm like, I, you know what I'm saying? I can understand that perspective. I can see where they're coming from. And it's just the way they look at things is not geared toward data, geared toward external data. Like internal data is their priority. And therefore they are no longer they're not often going to start with the idea of let's meet these external needs or needs from the external environment first.
But my perspective isn't in line with my perspective that I laid out in the book is that rational types are outgrowth of irrational types. To me, this is the same case that Rand laid out in The New Intellectual. Attila and the Witch Doctor was the original. Oh, then became the producer, the businessman and the intellectual. And that was an evolution, right? And theoretical as it may be, I don't see the case against it. And that's why I always look at these things in a directional way. That's why I never take rational and go backwards. I always take irrational and go forwards, if that makes any sense.
Sensing first and then using the sensations to build a rational argument.
Because where would a rational argument come from?
It's hard to it's hard to have a logical thought between things that don't exist yet. You have to have things to tie together.
Or unless you got collective ideas, unless you just operate on secondhand collective ideas, which that's where I think we are. You just believe what people say, and you just operate on that. So I think I have to have conviction on that perspective. And I'm pretty sure that there are people who will argue me down about it. But once again, it's not something that we can really find out. I mean, people say, "Oh, we have neurons in our stomachs," and
true. And it's like in brain down there. I'm like, sort of. We can define neural networks. There's like a loose kind of brain in there. I'm like, we're being really generous with this word, but okay. How does that what relevant data does that provide us? Like, I hear you. You're saying there's a neural network down there. Like, yes. It's like, and therefore I have a good feeling this is where it comes from. I'm like, do we have any data for that? Like, is any of that true? I mean, I hear you. It could have something it could influence things. But when you have a gut feeling about the character of somebody and you're making, and like they put you at ease, you've made a value judgment. is your gut doing that judgment? Like, is your actual stomach doing that? Or is it just supporting what you are coming up with, and your brain is making meaning of the sensations you've had, and yeah, the different
It's association.
associations you make it.
Association and emotion. I mean, I believe that that's emotion. And this is another case that I tried to make in the book, is that people conflate. If you would accept my thesis, or whatever you want to call argument, that everything originates with sensation. But here's the thing. If you at some point conflate the sensation of, touch, feel, external objects, smells, things like that, with the sensations that are derived from eternal emotions, that come from emotions, now you've conflated sensation with feeling. And now you think that, oh my goodness, feeling is sensation. Just like we say, you've done violence to me. This is violence. You know, and so once the person conflates and can't distinguish sensation from feeling, or sensation from emotion, or the emotion, the sense, he doesn't call it sensation. And I need to probably pull this up, because I think I made a good case for this. But yeah, if you raise a person in that way where they can't decipher or distinguish physical sensation from the things that they feel from emotions, you could get stuck like that.
Yeah, that is something that actually harms thinking. That literally creates so much confusion that it's very challenging to start having any real discrimination. And that's a terrible place to leave anybody.
Yeah, because you're in fear. And I think they have some studies that yeah, I mean, if you don't know, you almost have no choice but to be afraid.
Right? Like, well, bad things could happen. When? To whom? I don't know. Oh, that seems like a really important thing to know. We should really drill down on that. That could be me or you, at any point in time. Apparently, since we don't know. Let's.
And to me, this directly relates to something that I've been hearing about. So at one point in time, I went to this humanist lunch, whatever. They do this hour or some get together around it, humanism. And I was having a conversation with this guy, and he started talking about, they did this study during COVID where they were trying to figure out, why are people going to the market and just buying all of this toilet paper, right? And from what he's saying is like, well, they did a study on some, I don't know if it was women or some woman or whatever. And it was just this woman, her fear was so high that she couldn't think of anything but to go buy toilet paper. Like, her brain basically shut down and just was like, I just need this toilet paper, right? And that kind of relates to this. And I'm also listening to this book from Al Gore called The Age of Loss of Reason, or something like that. I'm a little frustrated with it, but he kind of brings up the assault on reason. He kind of brings up the same arguments. It's just like people, when they have, the assault on reason. He brings up the same arguments. Like, man, when you stoke fear, and I guess this is mostly aimed at G.W. Bush, when he was saying like he was stoking fear in people and trying to resurrect it, put a different preface on the front, and kind of relates it to Trump, I think. It's like, oh man, when politicians stoke fear, then we can't use our brain, and our reason is gone. Our capacity for reason is, and so that's why we don't want to operate on, which is totally disingenuous, because it's like you all people want to operate on fear too. So it's just, let's not play this game, man.
How can you believe they would do that? That's crazy.
Oh boy. But yeah,
Right.
that's the politics game in America.
Good.
So I guess I could roll to that point because it's kind of got me frustrated. But once again, you conflate inner sensation with outer sensation, and you get a bad situation.
If you introduce that level of overgeneralization to where you think that the things you feel and the things value, judgment, feel, meaning the things you experience are one and the same. If you're like, well, I touched the stove and it was hot and I saw this person and I felt bad inside, and therefore these are just natural things that occur in the world and I have no control over them. I'm like, you you've now advocated the position of being in control of your life. You've now advocated the position of being human to a large extent. And that is scary enough to say maybe there are, when you lose agency like that so quickly, maybe there's something going on that is wrong, that is a mistake, that is something you want to fix because of your own desire to be healthy or at least involved in your own life.
I mean, so I want to say yes, right? But I always default to the position that when we talk about thinking in that manner or agency in that manner, that is a development. I always want to remember that. Hey, you got to get there. You know, it's not like we're born and we would automatically get there even if we were left in the middle of the woods or something like. No,
Like how that works.
yeah, these are societal developments. You know, because fear is a totally natural feeling to have.
Right.
Right.
There are some things you should be afraid of.
Yeah, exactly. And then and I do believe that fear will inhibit your ability to think. Like when you can't figure out, oh man, I got my rent paid and my bills are done and I know I can eat today. You can't think further than that. Like, man, we don't have any food. It's cold. I got no shelter. Don't talk to me about tomorrow. Don't talk to me about next week. I don't want to hear nothing about that stuff. You know? So it's got that, and that's what I mean about societal developments. Oh, we can trade. Oh, I can work and get money and, you know, liquid capital, no, not capital, but, you know, income, funds, money, trade. Oh, we set up a society where we can kind of like fend off the people who would want to do bad, or hopefully fend off the people who want to do bad things to us and take our stuff, you know? Oh, okay. Okay, so now my mind can relax a bit. Or now I can I can strategize about some other time. Or I can sit back and just chill and think about maybe 10 years or 5 years down the line. I've afforded myself that much space. Then I understand that. Yeah, but a base human base case, man, I guess what we used to call it on guts. We, we, we
That's a whole different world and a whole different approach. So yeah, it's no joke. You can't just wing it all the time and be surprised how things are going. You have to actually try a little.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you need help too, though. That's the
Yes, it's a beautiful thing when you actually raise people.
exactly, man. And that's one of the things that irritate me about where we are and where kind of we'll be going. It's just, yo, you're not helping these people get to the next level. We're losing generations of people because we just pretend like, oh yeah, all of these things, this is the given. Civilized is the given.
I know it. Therefore, everyone knows it. What else would we need? Like everything. You would need all of the things are what we needed. The entire
Exactly.
foundation is necessary. Like, well, I had a foundation. What's their problem? They're new. They've
Right.
literally never done this.
Exactly, man. And it's unfortunate, man, because I'm out of focus. It's unfortunate because if you care about people, you don't want to see them in a bad situation. And you don't want to hear them complain about being in this bad situation with nobody the people who care about them always complain about them being in a bad situation, but you didn't do anything to help them not be in a bad situation. It's crazy. And so that's what frustrates me about that piece. And so basically you just want to deplete all of society to throw resources at this problem, which you really have no sense. You have no idea how to effectively treat this societal, I guess you can call it societal issue. These shortcomings in, I don't know. I don't want to say that because I have to make an assumption when I'm saying this if I'm saying that, because some people might say it's not a societal issue. I'm all right.
I love that. There's an exception over here, and I don't feel that bad about it. So clearly, it must be fine. Or how that works.
Yeah. But that's that's the crazy piece because, and that's why you gotta, man. That's you. In my opinion, you have to ignore some people sometimes because they have no idea how to fix anything, but they always want to give their 2 cents on stuff. And it's like, man, shut up.
So they fix something. Like, I want attention. Look at me. I say things. Nothing you say is relevant. I say things. All right. I see what we're doing here. Okay.
You don't care about these people. I genuinely care about them. And you have nothing to offer them except for guilting me into helping them for you.
Right. Your strong feelings don't defend the things you say you care about. Isn't helping them. I can't feed them your strong feelings. I need you to go all the way off my bet.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to find this piece real quick because I think it is relevant. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to, because sometimes I feel like I already went through these things and I'm repeating, but I'm not repeating, and I want to go through what I already wrote to see how it lines up. So it's just a couple paragraphs. It's called, the subheader is fostering rational and let me just wait. It's called, the subheader is fostering rational individuality through conceptual education. It says any formal education that does not prioritize the development of a child's conceptual capacity amounts to indoctrination. So it's really kind of indoctrination as it aims to instill the child with collective values instead of facilitating their ability to generate self-determined values. This indoctrination comprises the individual's lifelong ability to separate thinking from feeling by blurring the distinction between sensations, which are immediate responses to physical stimuli, and emotions, which are complex reactions arising from cognitive processes and interpretations. So I don't think I need to really read the second paragraph, but that's what I was with. But yeah, like interpretation, it's one thing to believe that you're going, it's almost like 3D. Like if you go to some of these, if I go to a virtual reality, quote unquote, roller coaster or thrill ride, they call it that. If it's good, I'm going to have these sensations, feelings that something real is happening to me, even if it's not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my interpretations are going to drive, I don't know, my nervous system. I don't know what you would even call it.
Eventually, yeah, you get a loop.
So when you get stuck there and you get people who can't escape the feeling portion, and the real problem is it gets exacerbated, right? Because when you don't try to figure out the world, you get more and more frightened about the world.
I mean, there's more and more uncertainty, and that can certainly lead to more and more fear. So it is very challenging to have a different reaction.
So that to me, that's this stuff all kind of goes together. They're fundamental things, and that's why I like that part, because to me it helps explain a lot. When you understand something, a broad area, we'll see this, just like I'm saying, like Al Gore is trying to paint the picture. Oh my goodness, the right is trying to, push a lot of fear. It's like, well, you're doing that too. So I guess fear is how we want vote. This is the politician play.
Our goal? It seems like it's our goal. People are doing a lot of this. Seems like that done intentionally. It must give them something.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I got to throw this in here just because it's kind of fresh in my mind. I think I might have to write a review on this book, but he tried to set it up like, yeah, he did the Kant thing. Oh, we're going to talk about reason. And it's not really reason. It's just, you wanted to use an intellectual argument to destroy your enemy. So you set it up like you were getting ready to come with the intellectual argument, and those people over there, cavemen. And then you just told me how you felt. That's just because that's really what he did. He set it up like, and if you look at this study, if you look at this history, and blah blah blah, and those people over there are the worst because they did this and then they did that. And
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes. My side is better than their side. Believe my side. We have studies, and these studies show these things exist over here. And if those people over there don't agree with these studies or know these studies or agree with me, and therefore they're bad people. I mean, there were a lot of jumps in there. I don't think any of those things logically follow. I get it, though. You don't like them. It's when it sounds like, sound like you don't like them at all.
and he may have good grounds for not liking him, but don't try to paint it like this is an intellectual case.
Right.
It's really not. It's got some intellectual arguments, but then it goes to example. And look, he did this. He said this. He said that the enemy was this person, and that enemy didn't have anything to do with the real enemy. And now you got all of America thinking it's this person. And on some level, I get it, but to me, it brings out a bigger picture for me. And this is all one of the reasons why I wouldn't call it me having difficulty communicating a point to people. Is people having difficulty understanding where I'm coming from because I can't get into look how he made or she look how you made this person think about reality and this adult. And that's why I get lost because I can't really relate. I don't think like that. I just think like, okay, we're arguing about what somebody thought reality was or how maybe I could have persuaded somebody to think something different. I mean, I look at it like that's your job. Your job is to think. And so
I mean, we all had that driver's thing, but you made a case that you were going to tell us what you thought. And so now this is your time to roll this out in a way that makes sense, that we can all understand where you're coming from. And that's fine. You can tell us your perspective. But if you're going to argue for one perspective over another, you got to have better reasons. And just like, I have reasons. I like it more. I have studies. I'm like, okay, did the studies support your argument? I don't know, but I like them. And therefore, other people don't have these studies. They're wrong. Like, but those, anyway, I just think that is a bare minimum. It's fine to have people tell us their perspective, but it's frustrating when I do not see how the things they're using to support their position, like directly apply. If it's not relevant.
but it's a little different than that, and I'm probably not articulating it well. It's the argument for censoring social media. Hey, someone put out a post, and that post is a lie, and so you should take that post down because it will make people think this other thing. You know, and for me, I'm thinking a lot of stuff is not going to be the total and complete truth, and I'd rather see most of the stuff than had only the stuff that you want me to see, because I don't feel like that's really going to help my life if I only get to see the stuff that you allow. I think that's bad.
That could be. I mean, it can be abused, right? Yeah.
I mean, it's not even that I think that it can be abused. I think by nature, it's you're going to have to use a principle for this. This is what I'm saying, like, because it becomes, oh my goodness, that's bad. We shouldn't let people see it. And maybe it's just the point that tells people that what you're saying is not right. Maybe that's why you don't want people to see it, because
bias exists. But I think that's secondary. I think like the first principles part is that truth exists. And if people don't have truth, they can't make real or wise decisions. And I think there is something to be said for having a truth criteria, some sort of standard we can say this accords with reality or not, and here's actual evidence in reality that supports that. I think there is a benefit for that, and it's cool to see when people can take that truth standard and make it the most prevalent thing possible by shouting out all the other people who are coming against truth standard. When people then take the truth standard and then say like, I like it or don't like it, that's a bias standard, and we can have a different conversation. Like, I mean, we can all let everybody talk about how much about what they think about the facts. But I really want, when people say we should silence people on social media, I'm like, that's the wrong approach. You need to make the truth louder. Do a better job of telling me what the answer is with real data. Like, show me what really happens and say, hey, this really happened. And when other people say, well, I don't like this thing that happened, they can say that as much as they want. But I need to know the actual thing that happened, please. And thank you.
But let me ask you this. Do you think the truth is easy?
If everybody was being objective, it would be easy. Meaning, like, there is a element of fact that exists that is objective. And so it's like, hey, the sun is hot and gravity exists and water is wet. I'm like, yeah, that's super easy. Perceptually, there was no interpretation needed. It just failed. We perceived it. It was there. Someone conveyed it. I'm like, that's easy. But that doesn't always happen. People don't convey things just as they perceive them. They usually convey them with some sort of interpretation.
Yeah, so. This is because I'm thinking using Jung's framework is a tool.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm looking some of the conversations that we've had, and I've talked about rational versus irrational, and I'll just use as an example because people may know it. The Terrence Howard flower of life conversation, or whatever, or there are no straight lines in reality. That may be true, that there are no actual real straight lines in reality, but it's not really relevant. It doesn't serve us.
Right.
So,
well, we define it within these parameters. It's not absolutely true. Well, nope, that wasn't how we defined it. We didn't define it as absolutely true and textually true. This one portion, it is more straight than this random curved circle. Clearly, they're different. That's all we needed. We needed just to have enough of a straightening on this continuum to be able to use it. And now we can use it. It's functional now.
Got it, right? And the bad thing to me is, because I'm about to go to a next point, is that I don't think he's doing anything wrong by saying that. I just think that it doesn't help people. So we don't care. As a rational person, it doesn't help my life. If it's not, so it's not that it's untrue, it's just irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I look at the truth on a interpretation scale, okay, if I think about thinking versus feeling, and I'm like, well, is this intellectually or conceptually aligned as truth? Or I could take the position of feeling and say, well, is this a good thing or bad thing for me or for people? Because, and this is to me why truth is confusing, especially in the public sphere, because people are really talking about different stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so this is why when one person says, okay, this is truth. I mean, I could take the TI approach. I'm iNTV. Like, hey, we need objective evidence to be conceptually aligned, and that's truth. And you can I know I've gotten feedback from people that's like, well, you're using a logical framework, but what about people who don't use a logical framework? That's my bias. You know what I'm saying?
They are not my audience. You're right. They don't agree with me. Cool. I am not here to convince every human being in existence to agree with me. I'm here to give my perspective. This is my 2 cents. It's like other people have their 2 cents. They do. But that's not my 2 cents. My 2 cents is this.
And that's why I say truth is difficult, and err on the side of letting almost everything through, because you're going to have a bias. Neurodivergent people are going to have a bias. Irrational people are going to have a bias. Emotion-driven people are going to have a bias. And I don't want anybody to really police this as that much, to be honest with you.
I mean, except for parents. I think this is the part that we have done a poor job with society, is that you pretended that all adults are mature. All adults are responsible, regardless whether they're mature or not. But like, it is the goal of maturity to walk through and know what the rules are, to know when you apply the rules and when not to gain that level of insight of discrimination so that you can be mature enough to say, this is right in this context for this reason. This is wrong in this context for this reason. And that's what adults are supposed to do. But like when it comes to children, like they have not been, most people have not been effectively raised yet, you know, to be able to think that way and to have that information. They don't have that experience. And so like when it comes to putting things on the internet, I'm like, this is why parents have to restrict the access of kids to the internet. I'm like, there are so many possible options on the internet that it's hard to say that you are going to be able to vet all of them. And so kids use a much more curated experience. And I wish that was properly understood enough for people to fully accept and just use as a obvious framework that this is what parenting is. We have to keep the bad things away and keep the good things in so the kids get enough good things to start having their minds develop. Like give them time to develop, then give them the resources to start thinking. And then you can start exposing them to more and more bad things. They're like, hey, these things are things other people think that did not work out well. Let's explore this. What about this one? What about this one? What was the lesson there?
I mean, so first of all, I'm talking about adults in the jump because that's the assumption.
This is the only conversation you only can have a moral conversation with adults. We're leaving the all I'm saying is that when people say we can't put a bunch of things on the internet, I'm like, that only applies to children. That level of curation is not necessary or possible with adults. People are going to say things you don't like. We're going to have to move on. There's not enough oversight in the world that is going to fix it.
And I mean, and I get the reasoning for making it possible to have parental. So I get that. I think I don't know if I disagree with what you said. Because I think I don't know that it's so much that you, as a parent, you're keeping bad things away from your. I think that's the easy way out, right? I think that's the hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil way out. And now you throw them out in the world and they're like, hey, you didn't tell me about this. This thing exists and you didn't explain it to me. And now I have no defense mechanism against it, right? I think as a parent, what you're doing is trying to guide your children through the stuff, not keep them away from the stuff, but guide them through it. And
I hear you. Sometimes, and that guiding you through is a skill set, and so it's helpful to give people the skills first.
I mean, of course you get. Well, I don't think that this is an easy thing at all. But what I will say is, I think that is effective parenting. Like I think that's the upper echelons of parenting. This is what you should be doing, guiding guiding your children through things. And like I said, people take the easy way out. I remember it pops in my mind immediately. It was an argument. I used to listen to Colin Cowherd, Sports Talk Radio. And I don't remember the exact argument, but I guess somebody did something in sports. And maybe it was Colin Kaepernick kneeling on the sideline or something like that. And some parents were like, well, how am I going to take my kid to the game or show him this? Or I don't know exactly. Maybe it was Michael Sam and him being gay or whatever. I think it might have been Michael Sam and being the first openly gay football player. And he was like, I don't know, they're your kids. Teach them.
You teach them all kind of things. All the things you typically do as a parent. Yes.
But people don't want to do that.
They don't.
Josh, this deserves its own, more than a talk. It deserves an area of focus, period. People do not want to parent. People want to throw screens in kids' hands and have adult parties while they sit and watch phones and computer screens all day. And I mean, I don't have any notice, but this is what I see. Put it to you like this. Anecdotally, I see this a lot. But what I do know is that people don't like what I just said, guiding children through the difficult parts of life. And I don't necessarily think that this is a right or wrong answer, because let's say if I think of something like religion, okay, you got a Muslim, you got a Christian, you got a person that's an atheist. As a parent, I feel like you have the right to raise your child you see fit, right?
Yeah.
But these are different frameworks. These are not the same frameworks at all. You know what I'm saying? And so you don't have to agree on the framework, but it's not the same. Just don't want you to pretend like, not you, I'm saying anybody. I don't want anybody to pretend like, hey, these are
Matter. I'm like, oh, it matters a lot, actually. It matters a great deal. There will be consequences from what you choose.
yeah. Well, because there will be technically benefits, and I guess the opposite of benefit. Mind blank. Yeah,
There's definitely going to have some.
yeah. But that's what I mean about truth. Like, is Christian truth the same as Muslim truth? Is that the same as atheist truth? Is that the same as agnostic truth? I don't want to trivialize the term truth, but this is why I wanted to write a book about philosophy and psychology, because I'm saying, like, that's why I laid it out in the Jung framework.
Right?
These people are looking at the world in different ways.
Yes, there's different perspectives, but there is a objective thing that everybody's looking at. It's like, okay, everybody can go to an art show and stare at a painting and be like, all right, I like it, I don't like it, I think it makes me feel this, I think it makes me feel this, I think the author was trying to do that, I think the artist was trying to do this. It's like, okay, that's cool and all, but we have to all agree on the capital T truth. This is a room, that is a picture. Yes? All right. That we can establish as a fact. Everything else, we will have to start parsing that out through. Like, these are colors, and these colors are this colors. I'm like, everybody perceives these colors differently. I mean, we can say that some of these colors are different. That's subjectively true, but we don't all see the same colors in the same way. And that's okay. We don't have to. Anyway, all I'm saying is that the capital T truth needs to take precedence, so we can have a discussion about the lowercase truths, meaning the things that we believe about the actual objective things.
I mean, I agree. I agree, but I don't think people care as much as about the capital T truths as
You are correct. You are correct.
I
This
think.
is the struggle I have. I'm like, I care a great deal. They're like, yeah, I don't care that you care. I care personally that this thing is what I say it is. Like, I don't know if it is what you say it is. And, I don't know why that's necessary to even have that conversation. I believe you believe it. It doesn't matter to me either. It doesn't affect me in that sense of change how I perceive this or change how I see this.
Yeah. So here's one of these moments where, when I'm with the example that we're talking about, what did I brought up about social media?
Mm-hmm.
This is something that people are actively making decisions on.
Right.
And so there will be a decision made. And I'll look at the example from that lens. Like, if I were to have to make a decision about this, how am I going to do it? I don't want to be like, well, it could be this and it could be that and it could be. I want to say, no, how would we actually do this thing that people are actively doing? Because right now we actively have people really, when you leave the door open, you get people trying to ban other political candidates from being able to put their ads on social media, because they say, oh, the truth is this is hateful, or the truth is this is that, or the truth is this person wants this, that, and the other. People start to use the ambiguity as a tool.
Yes. And ridiculous. I'm like, this goes against everything we're doing, and it's actively stifling both conversation and like thought. Like, we're not actively able to build one thing on top of another because we continually redefine things and change things in a way that is unhelpful.
And this is my mind, and I perceive what you just said, and my mind says that's why you have to go on the offense. You have to say, this is what we should do, because if you sit back and wait, you'll have to defend yourself against so much stuff. People will be like, well, you could do it like this. You got so many people who want to talk and want to put out their beliefs and want to put out their ideas and want to be seen and want to be heard. All of these different things. You've got to go out there and say, no, This is how we're doing it because of this reason, because of this principle. If you look like this, I got this consistent case to go forward with. But if anybody sits back and says, well, this is wrong and that is wrong and this is wrong and that is wrong, that's a trap. To me, that's a trap because everybody loves to do that. Well, I don't like Kamala. I don't like Trump. And I don't like, okay, something's going to happen and you're not going to be involved. All you did was sit back and you complained. The person that wanted to take the reins went and did their own thing. And now you felt good about arguing. Congratulations. And so easy. It creeps up so easy. And anybody can find themselves in those conversations. And I think that you got to be wired a certain way because I don't know about anybody else. For me, when the conversation, I can't say that I've always been like that, but when the conversation starts going one direction, I just lose all enthusiasm for it. I'm like, oh no, we're talking about you like chocolate ice cream and I like vanilla. It's not an argument that I want to have.
Benefit at all. We're no longer making progress. We are now just stating preferences. Okay, well, I didn't come here to learn about your preferences. No, you keep doing this. You keep learning. But I want to do something else. I have an actual problem that needs to be fixed. This is not problem focused or solution focused. This is just, this is something we do to build trust and get closer to one another. And there's a time for that.
Yeah.
It's not now, but there somebody cares, and therefore it is a time for that for somebody.
Yes, I think you laid that out beautifully. The thing that just, as I've gotten older and I start to notice, oh wow, you see that people use this, and I don't know if they are using it as intentionally, but something is going to happen. And I'm like, well, how can I sit back and have this conversation about preferences? And then let me give you it's not a perfect example. This is just like a theoretical example. There are many times when you get into a meeting and people are just like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And if you're trying to be thoughtful and trying to be, earnest about trying to get the idea, you're like, okay, I'm trying to hear what this person has to say. I'm trying to hear what this person has to say. And then at some point in time, it becomes, okay, time's over. We're doing this. Bam. Wait. I listened to all of the stuff that you had to say and we didn't think it over. We just ran out of time and we just did a thing. No, I'm not you're not going to hit me with the banana in the tailpipe ever again with that. That's, you don't care about thinking. You just want to say random stuff after random stuff. Here's a consideration. That's a consideration. We could do this and could do that and could. Time's up. Signing into law. Wait a minute. Signing into law. Put it in he's set the budget up. And that's why the thing about life, you have to be very aware that things happen on a continuum. People have this idea of time doesn't exist. One of the most idiotic things in reality to me, because the only reason time exists is because of mortality, because I'm going to die at some point in time. And my life is transitioning from different points. This is why it matters. I'm hungry. I have to eat or I will die. Time matters. When am I going to eat? Oh my goodness.
That's 100% true. And I think it's sad that we don't have more people cognizant of that. These are the tactics some people use. Like, filibustering is an actual tactic that people know. Like, I could just say random stuff until the time runs out because everything runs out. I'm like, oh, they know what they're doing. This isn't a guess. Let's not let them do it. Let's not give them the material to ruin this whole thing that we're working towards. And, a good leader would stop the nonsense and would say, like, we have time constraints. Everybody gets 5 minutes. All right. So-and-so, you need to shut up now. We only have this much time left. These are the main standards. The company is going for this. We have to hit this metric. Which one do we want to choose? These are the two options that were that had the most support. And then go around the table. The kind of director. There has to be a leader in the meeting. There has to be someone to direct what's going on. Otherwise, this doesn't happen. And if there is no leader, then it behooves you to become that leader. Or if you can't take over the meeting, at least find the most influential person and have them take over the meeting. And like, these were the two suggestions that were said before. What does the main person who is the decider think about this? Would you like more discussion about this topic or this topic? Let's Let's pick one.
I mean, I think that there's two kinds of leaders like that, though. The reason why that pops in my mind is that there are procedural leaders that they're not intellectual leaders. Another thing that pops in my mind is Seven Habits. Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. When it's like, you got the managers and you got the leaders. Managers are out there they're in the middle of the jungle, they're getting stuff done, we're chopping down trees, we making good line headway, we're ahead of schedule, metrics are ticking like this, blah, blah, blah. A leader climbs a tree, looks out over the jungle. Looks out over everything, is like, wrong jungle. You know what I'm saying? It's, so the managers are getting stuff done, but they don't really necessarily always have the direction of where the hell they're going. So that's what I mean about there's two different kind of leaders. There's the visionary leader, and then there's also the procedural. Let's make sure that we have this time constraint. And we're talking about these ideas, and I think these people can work together. But also, ultimately, what this becomes is, and people hate this, and I wanted to kind of talk to you about this in a different context, but this is a framework. People don't like frameworks. They don't like frameworks.
I don't have all the choices in the world anymore. Like, you don't. And you actually never did. No. You still don't. I just want to be real clear.
But that's the thing. Like, but when you're talking about leaders, I ran out of time. Look, we got a framework. We're moving on. And then people will say, well, something that may be true, but not relevant. Like, well, I had another thought, I wanted to do this, and it could be this, and you could give us more time. Yeah, we could, but we're not, because we have a framework. We're moving.
And cool. We only have so much time in the world. This was the time that was set aside for this. We are doing it in this time, or it's not going to get done. That's also an option. We can also just not do things.
Yeah, that's true. But then you've really given the reflexive person. You've given them the situation that they really want. This is the Joe Biden can no longer be president. Here we go. We've got Kamala Harris.
Right.
It's like, you didn't come up with a better idea, and now you got what we give you. So, but there are people, like you said, they know what they're doing. There was this other case, I can't remember. I think this was, do you know who the guy was? Oklahoma. It was like TD something, or T-Boone Pickens. You ever heard of somebody like this? Oklahoma State University, I think his name was T-Boone Pickens.
Wow, that's exactly right. T-Boone Pickens. Good job.
Cool, yeah. So he had the story. I don't know if he went to Russia. So I think this is T-Boone Pickens. I hope I'm not messing this up. But he went over somewhere. It was another country, and they were saying, like, he was like, "Oh, we're not going to do anything." He was trying to make a deal, and the guy was like, "No, we're not going to do the deal." And it was like, we are not going to do the deal because we know that you're going to give it to us for less. And I don't know if the deal got done. I don't think it did, but it was just a play on America's being gullible and trying to, fix the rest of the world, or, I need to pull the story up again, but that's the sense that I have of it. But I think it was T-Boone Pickens that had this story.
That's funny. Yeah, I always find it humorous in the process of negotiating. People decide, like, the best negotiation tactic is to make sure the other party feels powerless. Let's go ahead and just antagonize them and just see what happens when they give into it. I'm like, that works for me, cool. But eventually people learn, like, oh, I don't give a fuck what you think. It's okay. I'm just going to do whatever I want now. It's like, you can't guilt them or strong arm them into this. You can't shame them into just going along with the crowd. When you're two independent people, when you show up to a deal and you're both doing okay and have all your needs met, you can't just show up and like, well, you're going to have to do what I say now. It's like, I don't think that's how negotiations work. So I'm definitely not going to have to do anything I don't feel like doing. It's like, well, you're going to have to. It's like, no. So you want me to. You've mistaken your position. I don't work for you. You're treating work for you. I don't. I don't. We're negotiating. You giving me something, but you still not giving me something. So I don't. I definitely don't work for you.
But to me, that's the interesting thing about trade. Because, man, this is a broad thought. There is this you have to make these concessions sometimes.
Right.
Because think about it like this, and this is what's popping in my mind, and I hope this doesn't turn into a dumpster fire of a thought. I'm thinking about, like, it's not Oren Boyle. Is it Oren Boyle? Did Oren Boyle have the oil in Atlas? I don't know. I can't remember. But it just becomes this thing.
Get it?
Huh?
Oil. No, he's ahead of steel.
Okay. So whatever the guy was that had the oil fields. The point of it is, it's like people who want to make money and who are rational, and I don't necessarily just use fictional, theoretical. They need people who aren't rational a lot of times, right? And this is the whole reason, in my opinion, that you get you see how the rich people are taking advantage of the poor worker, and it's like, well, you got people who aren't making decisions dealing with people who are making decisions, and this person wants to make money, and this person is just a survival mode / they just not making necessarily decisions like that, in my opinion. And not all of them, many of them in certain cases. And the whole thing is, when you can't, it's like having a conversation with an animal sometimes. Like they're not really negotiating. They have things that they want, and they're not thinking about what you want or what you might like or what would be a good trade here. They're just like, I want this thing. And
yes.
I
You will
just
give
want it.
I want the thing. You will give it to me because I am confident. I'm confident you will give this to me. Why? I don't worry about why. I want it, and therefore you will give it to me. Do you have a deal? Like, what are you out? Have you forgotten everything that goes into this negotiation? Like, no, I'm confident. I was told I need to show up and be confident. I'm here to make a deal. Do we have one?
Yeah.
You said all the steps of negotiation. So no, we do not have a deal. You're in the same position we were before we started.
But then you can
Ellis White did.
Ellis White. Yeah, but a lot of times those people that I'm talking about, and you kind of allude to those are people who can pull the "I have been marginalized" card,
right?
And that's their chess piece. I went in there and I could talk to him just like any other rational person would talk to him, and he rejected my deal. Nobody knows that you didn't really offer anything, but
you just walked in there and stuff, made more demands, and then were upset when your demands weren't met. I'm like, it's not a hostile negotiation. What are you doing?
They rejected my deal because I am X, because I am Y, because I am... No, because you didn't offer anything. But there are people who don't understand they don't understand negotiation at all. That's why people don't understand capitalism, to be honest with you.
People don't understand capitalism because they don't understand production either. I think that's also to me, it is shocking how many people don't realize that goods and services come from somewhere. Like they did not realize that in people when they're like, these people would get out here and say things where the goods and services are divorced from money. I'm like, no one believes that. No one would say that. That's crazy. Then I watch it actively happen over and over again, both in political discourse and in real life. And I'm like, oh, I was way too naive. I thought everybody would acknowledge the bare minimum that like the factory goods came from the factory. I thought we all at least could get to that point. Apparently not. That's how it fits. I mean, I have this.
The stork brought it.
Say that part out loud. Okay.
The stork brought it. That's a lot of people. They're just not thinking. And once again, like if you take it back to the primitive mind, they just don't have that capacity, or they can context drop. But One example, and I don't know if I've ever brought it up in here, and this is like what I tell people though. Wherever you're sitting right now, if you're not in the wilderness, you got a phone or whatever. If you're watching this or TV or something, if you're in a room, look around your room. Everything you see was somebody's vying for life. Every single thing, the paint on the wall, the sheetrock, the wood, the electrical plate, the electrical switch, the electric, the lights, the table, the paint on the table, the nuts, the bolts, the space itself. Somebody was vying for life. They offered you their goods, their services, their labor, so you would pay them. So, and that's why that you've gotten developments that you have. I'm on a screen. I'm looking at a camera. If nobody paid people for this thing, it would not be here.
And if nobody made it, there wouldn't be anything for someone to pay for. It would not be here. It's crazy to have to say that out loud, but it's like, this is not expected. It wasn't nature. This is all man-made. Somebody had to do something.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
And people don't want to compete. They feel like, oh, well, like you said, this just exists in nature.
Mm-hmm.
We should just take it over.
Just eat the rich, take their stuff, make them pay their fair share. I'm like, oh, that's not how finances work at all. You don't get it. You don't get it. You think because you outnumber them, that makes you personally more powerful than them. But they are aware that other people exist. They have paid those people to defend them. They're not confused. You're like, I'm just going to overwhelm them with numbers. And they're like, they could overwhelm me with numbers. I'm going to make sure I make that part of my risk mitigation plan. And they have thought through this, whereas you are starting the process of thinking, they have already finished this, prepared, and already moved to the next stage. I find that it's sad, it's disappointing, but it's unnecessary to have that conversation. When people say these things out loud, that is the time for people to educate them, to say, the rich are prepared for you. They're not confused about this, but you are misunderstanding where your things come from. These people are only rich because you keep giving them money. If you take their money, if you take away the resources for them to help you, they will just stop helping you.
I mean, yes. I mean, I guess, but here's the tricky part, man. The guilt. This is the issue with Hank Reardon. This is the Hank Reardon issue.
Yes.
When you look at your mother and you look at your wife and you look at your brother, and he actually figures out the weapon that you have against me is my love for you. This is it's Superman Part 2. That's exactly what it is. It's Zod when he figured out, I know Superman's weakness. He cares about these people. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to destroy these people. You know what I'm saying? And so but you can't, if you lay it out the way you laid it out, I understand exactly what you mean, but you have to have full context with that, because when you make decisions, people who don't make decisions sometimes get upset because their approach to life is, you're going to handle it.
Right.
This is their approach. This is their strategy. I've got you. You handle the things, and if you don't handle them, I'll make you feel bad. And then once you feel guilty, you'll give me the stuff. And this is the same thing about the T-Boone Pickens story, because it's like, oh, struggling country, we need to do this deal. We know you'll give it to us because look at us, we're struggling. And it's like, this works, but unless you don't let it work. So
there you go. It works only as long as you tolerate it. And that's one of the first things parents learn, is that kids aren't born with a blank slate. They come out and they will easily take advantage of you or tear up things or destroy whatever they can get their hands on. The children, they don't know any better. That is why we have to actively teach them. That is what the process of parenting is for. That is what we are doing here. And I think it's super key to realize that the only power kids have is the ones we give, the power we give them. And so if we want the child to stop hitting mommy, like Jordan Peterson talks about this, it's like, take the kid's hands away from your face and tell them to stop hitting you. You are to be the parent. You have to instruct. You have to show them that you are bigger and stronger and love them. And that is the appropriate thing to do. It's not what you could think about doing if you feel like it. You have to do this if you were to be a parent. You cannot let your feeling bad for them stop you from effectively parenting, raising them, teaching them, or giving them limits and boundaries. Boundaries are love. If you stop or refuse to give them boundaries, you are neglecting your child.
I mean, I agree. But I just think that needs to be way more clearly stated and understood in society. I think because it's, oh, you're now giving them love, or look, I don't, and it's not you. I'm not responsible to this. This is to me why, as a kid, for me, I couldn't understand certain things because people were just using these weird abstractions that don't really have any relationship. Like, if I don't accept it as a real thing, there's nothing in reality that's going to actually teach me that abstraction. I think I'm saying this right. And guidelines, yes, guide them to being independent. This is to doing for themselves. Hey, you need to do things for yourself. See, we as humans have needs and requirements, and we have desires and, desires. To get these things, you need to do these other things because you also are living in a society where you can upset the emotions of others, and there are issues. Look, you can cross lines with people where there are real consequences that can happen, And so, but yeah, man, look, if you want to take a shot, I want to see people clearly lay these things out, because it just becomes, oh man, you need to love. And one of these things that I hate, I saw one of these videos today, just serve people and give them the Christian love. It's like, what is that?
Right? What does that look like? Like, did you take a... Yeah, it's infuriating because people say things like that and they mean passivity. Like, I want you to just love this person. How should I love them? We'll let them do whatever they want. I'm like, that is not right. I hear you. That is a nice thing to do. And I agree. Anyone who doesn't let you do what you want is not being nice to you. But, parents know.
Doesn't mean they're being bad to you either, right? It could be being good to you and not nice.
There you go. I mean, I'm just like, good parents don't let their kids play in the street. They are not nice to their kids. They are loving to their kids, and they give them clear boundaries to say, that will kill you. These cars can't see you. Get out of the street. Get into this yard. Get behind this fence because I love you. And so when people show them the Christian love, I'm like, tell them the boundaries. Let them know that the things that they're doing don't lead to life and health and happiness. That is what Jesus literally did. If you're going to be a little Christ and you're going to be Christian, then you should at least tell them the same thing Jesus told them. He's like, don't go that way. That's a bad way. It ends in death. Well, that doesn't sound very nice. I'm like, it isn't. It isn't nice. That was terrible. Apparently, people don't like it. He mentioned something about that throughout the whole book. Maybe we should just do... Anyway, it gives people a reason to preach. It gives people a reason to express the points that people have made this mistake before. It has ended poorly. I care for you and care about you enough to offer you the opportunity not to do that. And, to the best of your ability, you can at least warn people.
Yeah. But yes, but I guess for me, and maybe somebody might say, oh, you're stupid because you just don't take that and understand what that means. If I just say, look, I need you to explain, what are we doing here? If I put myself in a child brain, why do we need these rules?
Right.
Oh, we need these rules because there is pain and there is death. It's out there. Well, it's not out there. You can experience it, and it's not pleasurable. It's not a good thing. You don't want it. And these are the things that we've developed to teach you and tell you to keep you away from pain and death.
Apparently, the pain and the death were bad. They were literal detrimental things that were harming you long term. And so we said, don't do these things.
All right. And look, can it be some nuance to it? Of course,
Right.
And do people take things too far? Yes, man, I just got to get used to it. I know we talk this bouncing ball all the time here, but this is the thought I've been working with over the last week or so too. It's the P, for some reason it's showing up as the PPC balance thing for me. There are people who operate on production and there's people who operate on production capability. And to me, these are the rationalists and these are the empiricists. These are the people who would, the goose that lays the golden eggs, they would eat the golden egg and have no more goose. These are the people who treat the goose in such a way that necessarily they don't let the goose lay the eggs or something, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, that's what I mean when I say people take ideas too far. It's like, wait, I get that we've come up with ideas derived from reality, but you extended it too far that there's no reality left. Like,
Right.
so
You bypass
now,
the creation we have, and you just extrapolated into the future. It's just it was nice, but you're in the ether now, and now nothing to tell you back down. You're just saying things like, well,
hey,
it may sort of kind of work before, and so I assume it'll work this way. Like, that's a dangerous assumption, though. You're getting into a place now where that assumption doesn't work.
I think that's where that passivity comes from, right? Because it's like, oh, Christian love and kindness for kindness' sake. No,
Right.
kindness for a reason.
Right. That's the whole thing we're doing. We're not guessing. What are you talking about? You said crazy stuff. Why? Like, well, it feels bad when I say other things. I'm like, yeah, I bet it does.
Yeah, so it's frustrating because it takes a lot of work to get to the nuance. And people don't like to do that. Maybe, I don't know if it's because people like simple answers. I don't know if they do like simple answers. I just feel like the complex people don't like breaking it down in that much detail to say.
But it's also hard. Like
That's true.
to be able to explain things simply, you have to have a great grasp of first principles and a great ability to boil things down, analyze things down, and then go out of your way to empathize with your audience and like see what level they're able to receive it, and then find a shared example that everybody can relate to, and that's hard. That's hard.
I mean, but that's why I always say to err on not being too narrow. This is why I what got us into this conversation, talking about what I would basically consider censorship in a sense. Because when you start letting your framework dictate, just keep narrowing the bands, like now you've strained life off. This is to me why you have people like Schiller have an opinion of, oh, when there's too much rationalism, art dies. And when rationalism is gone or when it eases up, then art flourishes. Because to me, you've got that when you start clamping down on irrationality, you actually feel them. You are coming up with too narrow a set of barriers for people to experience in ways that don't actually affect you negatively. You just think that they're going to affect you negatively, or you're not clear in dealing with people and saying, hey, I understand you had this idea that goes beyond these bounds, but here's where negativity starts, where it affects my life. And so
You live in
catch these hands.
You crossed over the boundaries. Now you're gonna feel something.
So because to me, this is the whole thing about, well, I wouldn't say this is the whole thing about good and bad, but ethically, that's why I like to talk about ethics. There is a legitimate, objective boundary in ethics for me, whereas the morality is a little bit, I know I'm using these terms in different ways. Morality to me is individual. Ethics is group-based, good and bad. People will disagree. It's just my thing. It's just like, look, I'm a person in a group. I gotta set some boundaries, else everything is whatever somebody wants it to be, and I can't operate like that. So yeah, but we need leaders. Well, somebody's gonna come up with something. But is it a good thing if leaders who think well don't come out and implement? Then you just get with what the caveman just gives you. So, but yeah, man, yeah. And it was something else. I was trying to bring up last week to you. The FD signifier. Did you ever catch up with any of his stuff?
I got to like half one of his lectures, so I didn't get through a whole lot of his stuff. Which one of the things did you relate to that you thought was legit?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I related. It gave me the sense that, oh, I like your argumentation style. Oh, your conclusions are trash, but I love your argumentation style and the way that you go through the detail and analysis.
Yeah. He was systematic, he was methodical, and he tried to be evidence focused to the full extent that he could. So yeah, that part was cool.
Yeah, that's what. But I always hate his conclusions because essentially I like watching certain stuff, and people make this argument. They make so FD signifier, like from my mind, is like along the Marxist leftist doesn't fall in Democratic or Republican lines. When I say black, I'm not saying like his race. I'm saying like his ideology in a sense, you know. But it's something that's telling when I start to hear some of these people talk and the things that they're proud about. They're like, oh, this revolutionist, which is actually equals anti-culture. Like I've heard people keep saying this, anti-culture, right? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me that people would use this as a badge because for me, when I hear anti-culture, I'm like, oh, you really don't exist unless somebody has to exist for you even to exist. You have to have something to rebel against. So you need a person, you need people who are actually what I would call a self to rebel against. Because all you're doing is going against. You're like a Satanist. You know, a Satanist.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
They're like, we need to have a balance, and therefore I'm gonna be the counterbalance. Like, this is not helpful. It doesn't matter. It needs to be here, and I will be here for it. Like, yes, you are. It's crazy, man. It's funny. People like that. It's humorous to me, but also sad that it's so prevalent, and we let them do it.
But this is the mentality that you get when you don't develop a self, when you don't develop to what this is the stuff that I'm trying to lay out in the book. We had to develop into individuals before we were all collective. We were all just whatever. It was
Right?
the nothing.
Bring something to the group. If you're gonna be a part of this, you have to develop something first.
Yeah, and so for me, this is where anti-culture is, hey, some people have developed and they have made a world where we can enjoy the benefits of that development, but we're against the virtues that they have or possess that created that development. And so therefore, we're going to be anti. It's capitalism lifted the world. No, I'm anti-capitalism. I'm anti you telling me to do stuff. Like, we're not actually telling you to do stuff. We're saying this is how we can all do things to make it a better situation for everybody. No, I reject it.
Right? Only the real capitalists are the ones at the top. Because capitalism is by definition a oppressive system. I'm like, oh, you misunderstood the entire system, but you also aren't really interested in an answer here. You really just want to talk about things you don't like. I understand. You're not at the top. And you're right. It is a hierarchy. Those parts are true. They're not relevant, but they are true. Those things happen and they exist.
And people move along these hierarchies. You know? That's the one thing they ignore. So
there's even hierarchies among the anti-people. Not everybody has the same level of influence, fame, or control. So, I mean, anyway, there's nothing wrong with hierarchies. It's just something people don't. It's just something people say when they're not at the top of the hierarchy they want to be the top of.
I mean, and that's like the whole idea of like pretty privilege and things like that, or masculinity, heightened masculinity. This is what I meant when I was, and I'm probably was, once again, not articulate enough. This is what I meant when people start doing this thing. It's like, well, people don't perceive you as a select man, and I don't perceive this as, it's like, I'm not here to have a conversation about your perceptions of societal ideas and
No.
pretty privilege, but you got to admit that there is a pretty privilege, and I don't care. This is my position. I don't care. And then
Irrelevant to me in this conversation right now. How about that?
and their retort will be something like, "How you can just ignore all these things?" And in my mind, I'm thinking, these are the things that keep you in the place that you are. You don't really. You're not actually thinking. You're thinking about what other people are thinking.
Yes, this is not original to you, and we're not even attempting to solve the actual problem in reality. You're trying to resolve your internal conflict by getting other people to validate and affirm you. I don't want any part of that. All the things you just said don't solve my actual problem in reality.
No, but they don't. But this is why. This is the only reason you could argue with a person who is actually solving the thing in reality, because you're not involved in this conversation. You're not involved in solving problems, really. You're involved in identifying, like you just said, their beliefs. They're not. We're solving different problems, and I don't understand it. It's weird, man. It's just a weird, and but it's consistent in each one of these cases. And I don't know if you've ever seen this. Have you ever had somebody ask you a question about something, and then you give them the answer, and then they get mad about the answer that you gave them? It's like, I had to tell you what this thing was for you to even get mad about it.
Right. My favorite is when they get mad at you about it and then disagree. Like, no, it was the whole point of agreement. That was the reason we got mad. You said, I don't even know this is a thing. And I said, oh, this is certainly a thing in this context, in this context, in this context. See, this has some basis in reality. And then you were mad. How dare you say that? How do you know? How could anyone know? And that's not true. And I don't like it. Like, either it's not true or you don't like it. It can't be both. You're gonna have to pick one thing to be mad. I don't know why you're so angry, but we really gotta rein this in. We're moving farther and farther away from being solution focused.
Oh my goodness, man! But that's so frustrating. But just the whole idea. I don't know if anybody. I mean, of course, you understand what I'm saying, but do people recognize this? There are people literally who they'll see a thing and say, "Well, what's that?" Or what? Yeah, it's more or less what's. I'm trying to think of a specific example. They don't know what this thing is. You tell them what this thing is, and then they say, "No, I don't believe that." Or like, you had no idea. I gave you everything that you got. Everything that you have, I gave it to you. And now you have a judgment? How did you come up with a judgment? You didn't even know this was a thing. It's like, next time, just be ignorant. I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. Just die. That's
Or if you investigate that we're not going to have this conversation as if we're equals. No, you go get your own evidence to judge, and then we'll talk about it.
right. Exactly. And then they'll be mad and say, well, why didn't you tell me that? Because you're not conducive to information. You just don't accept information very well. So you got to figure it out yourself.
Anything. We came to this as equals. You did not participate at all. So I did not tell you. I did not offer you anything because you had nothing to trade. So when you get something, then we can have this. Well, that's just not very nice. And if you really cared about this problem like you say you do, you would make sure that you would give me a solution. Like, oh, that's not what I agreed to at all. I never supported the plan of me being your brain and your savior and or general problem solver. Like, I don't work for you. That's certainly not what what I was offering. You may have thought I was, because I would have been, I apologize if you got that impression that I was going to like just help you for free and just randomly do all your thinking and your work for you. But I actually, we had a similar problem. So I figured maybe we would work.
Man, that is so common, and it's so common. I guess to me, if you lay this stuff out and you help people understand what it is, I'm hoping that it's helpful, because these things are repetitive. If you understand what they are at their core, then you can detect these things and
Right.
kinda,
Quickly. Move on.
But now, I mean, but kind of jumping back to a point that you made before, I think it was about the kids. Like you're like, well, kids aren't born for blank slate. I think to me, that perspective is assumptive. It's projecting, because I think people do a lot of things that really don't have meaning, but because you have attached meaning to it, you're saying, "Oh, this is why that they're doing it." They may just be learning, you know. They may be learning the boundaries, and it's like playing parents against each other. And I think that was a specific example we talked about. Oh, they know how to do this. I don't know if they know how to do it as much as what they do gets that result, right? That's kind of how I see it. This is all one thing to me is, and I talked about this a little bit with Young, is that at the base level, humans all operate on emotions. This is what the thing was in the Caprachicos. It's like, even if you don't speak the language of a person, you can kind of get an idea on an emotional level. That's the only means that you have to communicate in some way, right? Not to say that I would say that's not effective. It's not very lucid. It's not very, it's precise in any way, right? But it's certainly a method, because all humans had these base levels of, I guess, what you could call emotions or whatever. But that's what he's saying, that that's the base human communication method. Or, yeah, I guess that's what you could call a communication method. But, yeah, so I kind of went a little bit longer than I wanted to go with that. But that's what I was saying with that.
Which makes sense, though. I mean, I think that's kind of the point that we have to come back to. Like, there are certain things we can do, and there are certain things we have to do, and there are things that are consequences of what we do. These consequences are here regardless, so we have to be at least aware of them if we're going to actively avoid something that are going to be negative.
Yeah, because you got two things clashing. You got consciousness and reality clashing.
Yeah, which one's going to win? Which one are you going to choose?
And what gets formed? What gets formed? So, like, to me, meaning gets formed. That's what happens when consciousness matches up with reality. Meaning gets formed. It's like, hey, I have a hand. It has feelings. There's a fire. I touched it. It hurt. That's bad.
But I do not wish this fire to happen again. I do not wish to feel this fate again. I'm going to not, thanks. I'm not going to put my hand in this fire again. Okay.
Right. Oh, man. So that was the other thing. So FD signified. Which video did you catch? Did you?
I had one on Donald Glover, which was interesting, like anime or something that was interesting.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I was with him for a long period of time. Like, all right, I see what you said. It's like, and this is my judgment. This person is terrible. Like, wait, what? You the whole thing I think you liked about what was going on. He's like, this is a bad person, and this person is doing this thing with a poor intent. I'm like, okay, now we're just saying things now. We're just the evaluations and the conclusions that we jump to were not based in reality. They were really just like, this is what I thought beforehand. And this is what I'm going to add and tack on the end of this video. I'm like, okay.
Mm. I think he just has a framework. I think he's loyal to his framework. I think it's poor. They're poor conclusions.
I just disagree. I disagree with the things that the conclusions he comes to, the things he thinks are one, true or two helpful. I'm like, I don't think the way you do.
Agreed. I, but see, this is to me, this is hopefully I can try to teach people this from an anti-culture revolutionalists. You just ignore those people. You, if it's a bad conclusion, there's no penalty to be paid if I ignore it. You know, the only benefit he gets in return, because if it's bad, he can't use it to live a life. The only return is someone who can do things validating. And it doesn't even have to be a person who can do, I guess at some level it does, but somebody has to validate a bad perspective. It's I wish I didn't close. It's similar to the when I went through psychoepistemology of art, Rand talking about, oh man, I gotta pull this up because this is not even me. This is her. And so, okay, so it's talking about ethics in this sense, but it starts with ethics. Ethics, the normative science, is based on two cognitive branches of philosophy, metaphysics and epistemology. To prescribe what a man ought to do, one must first know what he is and where he is, i.e., what is his nature, including his means of cognition, and the nature of the universe in which he acts. And this is the part that I'm thinking about. It is irrelevant in this context whether the metaphysical base of a given system of ethics is true or false. If it is false, the error will make the ethics impracticable. What concerns us here is only the dependence of ethics on metaphysics. And so this is what I mean. If it's impractical, it doesn't. You will die.
That is the best. That is the best form of let's split test this. Let's stress test this. Oh, it didn't work at all. Okay, great. Now we can. That is data we need. Now let's move on to find something that will work. All right.
Good. Yeah, man. That's yeah. That was another saying. It kind of relates to that, but I don't even want to pull it out right now because it's like it's another tool. I guess I might as well just don't even mention it and not pull it up. Ignoring is one thing, but as I made the case in the book later in that book too, I said, watch out for savages because yes, it may be logical to ignore them, but they don't like you ignoring them. So you better watch your back because they feel like they feel that they've made a point and you've ignored their point and they feel like they have a legitimate concern. As wrong as they may be, and at the end of the day, violence is the language of the savage. And so you need to watch out. I know you can just ignore, but always keep them in your side view because
You could just miss their opinion, but never the person. The person's still in front of you. Like,
yeah. And it's still not just in front of you, around, because you have to watch yourself with people when you take a rational approach because you're thinking and they're not. They're going to be upset if you don't give them what they think is basic acknowledgement. Some people, not all, but some are going to say, well, they're going to get frustrated to the point that the only thing that they can do is act out in violence. And the first thing is, intellectual approach to me is ignore things that don't. The second thing is, when they do matter, just impose consequences, right? And ignoring people is a consequence. So that's like one side of the spectrum. But on the other side of the spectrum, and I heard this, I think this was Lenin or Stalin, one or the other. And I guess somebody was saying that Trump used this. I don't know if Trump used this or not, whatever. But he had a saying, and he was saying that no man, no problem. And that's the answer. It's like, I let you have your space. I did not interfere in your life. You have a problem with my decisions. I feel like I've done the right thing here. And so the only problem I have is your confusion about the boundaries of my life. And so therefore, I have a problem because you now think that it's okay to approach me in a violent manner or whatever. I have a problem, so no, we have a problem, and I know how to solve problems very quickly. So no man, no problem. But once again, people will be like, "That's barbaric." You can have kindness for kindness' sake. You can be passive, not me.
Right? But you've chosen to live. You are welcome to do it. I have not. I have not chosen that. I disagree with that whole approach.
Absolutely, because it's an irrational approach.
Yeah. Yes, it's a faulty approach that fails.
I understand it. I get what you mean. I get the meaning. I understand how you got there. I didn't understand why you stayed there in the face of
Evidence.
right.
Clearly detrimental to you. You stayed doing this. Like, well, what was I supposed to do? Like, evaluate the situation and change. A lot of people change. You could have just copied them. I mean,
they could say, "I turn the other cheek. I'm copying Jesus." You know.
oh man, so funny. People are funny, man. I'm just like, he's actively starting a price as people dying in the streets, and they're like, I'm being like Jesus. I'm gonna lie down on the streets. I'm like, I don't think that's we're reading a very different Bible. You are very confused about what's going on. No,
Man. It's like it's similar to those people. Have you ever seen? Well, I know you've probably seen some of these protest videos where people just think, "I'm gonna just sit in the middle of a busy street," and
nothing will happen to me. I have a point to make, and my feelings will protect me. Oh no, you misunderstand your feelings for mine. I don't have the same ones. We don't have the same standards. Oh, that's super terrifying. What if something happens? Something has happened. There it is. Yep.
yeah, and you really stand no chance against this car.
Man, yeah, not at all. But it's crazy because it happens. It happened more than once. Like, I get it that there were people out there who felt really strongly in the beginning, and they were like, "All right, I feel strongly about this terrible oil something over here, so I'm gonna go protest this with a place that gets to be the most attention. I'm gonna throw soup on this painting." What a terrible idea! What a terrible idea! What a terrible idea! And then these people get arrested and, go to jail, and everybody's like up in arms. And somebody decides they had the courage to stand up for their beliefs. I'm going to go handcuff myself to this random tractor and just see what happens. Like, no, you have not learned the right lesson from this. The lesson was that there were clear consequences for people's misbehavior. Yes, it gets you notoriety, but no, it doesn't achieve your goal. The world is no more safe than it was 5 seconds ago. What do you do with?
Yeah. But do you think it's for notoriety?
I think certain people start sacrificing their safety for exposure. And they're like, as long as I can get my message out there, I have made a difference. I am important. Look at me, important. I don't know, man. I don't think you are. I don't think you're doing a good job at this whole getting your message out there. We are getting a much different message than the one you think you're doing.
Yeah, man. I think, and I'm probably reading a lot more into this. And the first thing I think when I see these things, I think, oh, this is a person that has a total lack of self. They don't have a self. And the reason why I say this, and I'm pretty sure people would disagree, but what you find is that, in my opinion, there are people who don't have a developed sense of self. And so therefore they use all of these external things to fill this. They're trying to fill this void. If I advocate on the side of whales, then I can feel like I've accomplished something. If I advocate on the side of black people, I can feel like I am now someone. See, I've stood up for It's like identity politics in this sense. I've stood up for the black race. I've stood up for gays. I've stood up for the whales in the ocean. What about you? There is no you.
I did. I stood up for the thing that was important, that was good, that was right, and I didn't let fear stop me. Like you didn't let fear stop you. But you also didn't let wisdom guide you. And I think that's a much more important part. Like I did that stupid thing bravely. I'm like, yes, it was very an ask if you should do it. It's a really important question. Nope.
Yeah, if you want to kind of like give a balance to the point too. If you want to look at the other side, it's the same for some people who feel like I'm going to give up my life for my country without context.
Right.
Right? If you just say, "Oh, I'm just going to fight for the country," why? I mean, there could be reasons that you could say, "Oh, I'm fight for this country because this country is a country that fights for freedom, and I'm an individual and I want freedom, and so I think that these are things that I would like to fight for, and so therefore,
or I just have people I want to protect, and this is the way I'm going to choose to do it." Like, okay, I see where you're coming from.
yeah, but just to be like, "Nah, I'm here for my country, and I will die for my country." Do you care for your country? Do you? Why? Context? Any context? So, but yeah, man.
Right. Sad and concerning. I don't know if this is the best way to serve your country. There might be ways to stay alive and help your country. Think about it.
Yeah. But I mean, what was I reading? It was The Personality Brokers, I think. Merv, what is her name? I don't, I guess it's really not that important, but I think it is The Personality Brokers. And part of the book, and this is a woman that kind of did like some history on Isabel and Catherine Myers-Briggs, or Isabel Myers-Briggs and Catherine, whatever, something like that. The people who came up with the MBTI. And in the earlier part of the book, she was talking about how, I guess, the military was finding certain types of people. They were using psychological tests, and they wanted certain people who would just act, and not really have a sense of, just hesitation. They just could just take on a persona and maybe go undercover and maybe go on the war, the drop of a dime. And they were looking for certain personality traits. They were using like earlier versions of MBTI to identify these people who they could send off in the war or train in a certain way to be,
Perfect.
spies.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, pretty much that. So, yeah, I mean, psychological traits exist. And this is, see, like psychology is one of those weird things where people just dismiss it too. But people like, oh, I've seen people do this. Like, man, are you saying there's only 16 types of people in the world? That's crazy. Or there's only 8 types of people in the world. That's just dumb. And then you get stuff like objective personality with 1,100 and something types, which is
Right. Oh, yeah. We got off the deep end here. We have now, this is no longer helpful. Well, there's lots of combinations. Yes, math exists. We can keep going up on figuring out how many things exist, but this is no longer useful. Let's create big groups and broad categories so we can at least start somewhere, get our brain around it, and then we can talk about, subdividing things later, but we don't start with the subdivisions. Too many subdivisions.
First of all, the reason why we don't do just kind of just a step back, and Harry Benswanger helped me with this a lot, pretty much. It's like the concepts are good because they simplify. We're trying to limit, like we can't think of but so many things at one time. So therefore, we want concepts that help us be able to address everything in our perceptual realm. Not necessarily everything in our perceptual realm, but to bring all of those ideas into our consciousness, in a sense, And people don't understand. It's like, well, you're forgetting about, no, the best concept that we have that we can bring in here to represent that is better than trying to actively remember everything that ever happened in life, anywhere, at every time. This,
That what's necessary for this. We need a generality to describe this so we can hold it in our mind. Well, this table has these 4 legs. This table has 3 legs. This table's round. This table is, but they're all tables, man. They're all tables. Just talk about tables right now. We can talk about what kind of table we want later. For this discussion, we need to figure out what kind of the table fits in the card. All right, let's just pick one of those. Dang it!
I mean, but you
Table wheels. Stop talking. No more. Details exist. I know. We just need some generality to start with so we can finish this discussion.
right. Hold on, let me grab some water real quick. I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, Jets.
But that's the frustrating thing because people don't acknowledge we are simplifying things and they get so mad. It's like, you're oversimplifying. But you are too. You're just doing it in a different way.
Right. Yes, we are. We are both of her simplifying on purpose.
So we can make something useful for us.
There you go.
Crazy.
Yes. And it's crazy it has to be explained that way so people can have the same idea and concept of saying, this is what we're doing. This is what all conversations are. This is what words are. So we have to start with something that we both can understand. Yes, it won't be as detailed as possible. That's okay. That's the point.
Yeah. Because the more you generalize, the more you can make something applicable to yourself. Once again, this is the points. A lot of the points that Jung was making. His thing is empathy and abstraction are kind of two ends of these frameworks, in a sense. Empathy makes you look at every little detail and get into the nooks and crannies and understand it up and down. And you get so stuck with the small picture that it's hard for you to see the big picture. Abstraction is like, I just need to see the big picture so I can, take away from this thing that I need to. And it just becomes this generalization. And like you said, there are a lot of details or aspects of certain different kind of tables, but it's a table. And so this is in this context right now, all we really need to know is table.
Right? This category different from the other category. What makes this furniture different from other furniture? All right, good enough for what we're doing. Let's move on to the next point. Like, we're not done yet. We're not done. We can't get trapped into these things. We have to find a new thing to do.
But the frustrating part for me is sometimes I'm talking to people and maybe because of the way I talk, it might sound like condescending. But really what I'm saying is we're having a conversation at different levels. I'm having it at a higher level than you're having it. That's not supposed to be a dismissal of your point. I'm saying that, hey, we need footwear. And you're like, well, is it Nikes or is it boots? I'm just saying we need footwear. That's all I want. But what if there's sandals? You think sandals are... All of those are... You know what I'm saying?
Right? I'm not judging any of these things is better or worse. Or not even at that stage yet. We're just trying to discuss what they are. Is this footwear? And if it is, what makes it footwear? Let's just start with this, please.
And that will bring about a lot of difficulty because I get it. Overgeneralization. I mean, it's not overgeneralizing. Like, if I need footwear, I need footwear. Now, the specific footwear is something specific to our time, the circumstances, and places. And yeah, that's applicable.
That is certainly the next step, but we haven't established the first step. Let's at least get there. Let's at least say, oh, we need footwear. Okay, why don't we talk about what kind? Well, we can't start with what kind of footwear do you want? Well, I don't know. What constitutes footwear to you? Because I don't want there to be confusion.
But so I just don't. It's incommunicable sometimes to just say, hey, and I would like to diagram it. I would like to actually have a conversation with somebody and say, hey, you're talking about something down here. I'm saying this. It doesn't negate anything that you're saying down here. It just means it's encompassing of all the things that you're talking about.
Right.
So we're not against each other. We're just at different levels of this conversation. And this is another thing that throws me, like, because I like having ethical conversations. And I think you mentioned it before when people doing the people thing and you're talking about preferences. From an ethical standpoint, I don't care what kind of ice cream you like. I don't care what kind of footwear you like. You want footwear. There are bigger questions that need to be answered, and your preferences. This is why I like ethical conversations, in my opinion, because I don't have to worry about just preferences.
Bonnie starts saying like these things apply to both of us, so there have to be things we both care about. Let's discuss them in a way that's helpful. This is why I think is helpful. What do you think is helpful? Now we can finally go back and forth. We have something. We have a mutual goal that we're trying to.
Yeah, but the conversations get convoluted though, Josh, because the thing is, think about it like this. If I'm having a conversation about ethics and government action, and I'm saying, well, I don't think that anybody should be forced to do anything with their body, or I'm just trying to make up an argument right now. I don't have anything specific. And then another person will say, well, these people over here are making a lot of money by doing this thing. And look at what the position that the government has put them in. And it's like, but the answer is not for someone else to do the same thing. The answer is for us never to do that thing.
Right? I don't want anyone to do it. Well, you're gonna let them get away with it? No, I don't want anyone to do it. Did I not mention that part earlier? It's true. I don't want anyone to do it. I don't want them to do it, and I don't want me to do it. I don't want anyone to do it.
But people, and then the argument becomes, and this is the indistinguishable man-made from nature, from the metaphysical from the man-made. You can't distinguish between the metaphysical and the man-made. And Rand made that point. It's like, this person can't, a fire, a marriage, an earthquake, a newspaper are all things of the same.
They're external, therefore they are the same. I'm like, wow.
It's like, this thing exists. It's here. And so therefore it must exist. It's like, well, this is a person's choice. We can get rid of that. We can get rid of that. No, but it's here. It exists.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's just how will we even know? How would that even happen? Well, there must have been a time where it wasn't here. I mean, who knows? Do you have all knowledge? Were you there during that time? Who are we to know? Like, man, this is not a conversation.
You can't have. That's why she said it's incommunicable, though. I can't have a conversation with a person who thinks a newspaper and a fire or an avalanche are things in the same realm, the same order, the same nature. This is
not
somebody made one thing. We just have to deal with the other thing.
It's terrible and accurate. So true. Certain people, not all people, but certain people have given up on the discrimination function and the critical thinking that goes into why things exist, how we know.
True. Yeah, I mean, other than that, man, I don't know if I have anything specific, but I kind of wanted to and I think we kind of touched on it peripherally in this conversation, is the whole idea of order. And it's got to do with the frameworks and the conceptual thing, and just how some people any semblance of order worries them. And that's for some people, order calms them. For some people, order worries them. And sometimes I guess I think it's a legitimate fear in some sense, because I think, like I said, some people take concepts too far. They take ideas too far. But I'm just kind of worried that not worried, it's not the right word. It's almost as if order is a bad thing today. Oh no, we just let the people come to work whenever they want to come to work and do this, that, and it's like, no, order helps us. It's supposed to help us. That's what order is supposed to do. But I guess for me, and This kind of why I wanted to have this conversation, because I wanted to get you. I think order stopped helping us when people became dogmatic. When people become dogmatic about order and the ways to do things, and they don't actually tie to the facts of reality and the reasons for the order, and they just are now doing order for order's sake, then they become obedient. And then to me, there's a sect of people who are like, no, we don't need this level of order. This is ridiculous. And then the other person can't hear it, and they're like, no, we have to have order. You're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that. And we have to ease this tension. this is me speaking.
I mean, it's helpful to ease that tension, to point out that there is a higher goal in order. That order exists so that we can know the context for the next thing. So what worked in the past, and have some of to approach any new thing we find in the future. It's like it's great to have order so that we have some semblance of guidance or understanding, but we can't pretend that the order that we have is, like you say, order in itself, order for order's sake. It's like that is not how we use this tool. This tool is not a universal tool we can apply to everything. This was helpful this one situation in this one way. We have evidence for that is what we are.
Good. It just becomes, I follow, these are polarized, these polar things, I guess. They're order and chaos.
Yeah. And so it's
Peterson.
crazy. It's crazy how people think order is associated with masculinity now, and that any kind of chaos is associated with femininity, which I'm like, I don't love these definitions, because we're all people. We're all going to have to be orderly for the most part. There's some level of variability. And if you want to call variability chaos, then I'm like, we're all going to need to have some of that to survive as human beings. But in a general sense, let's just say that there are pros and cons to order, and there are pros and cons to a level of variability. But we should not say that we have to fall on one side or the other and throw away all the. So it's crazy to read. It's crazy to me that the idea that we should incorporate more females into the top part of the hierarchy structure has been associated with the fact, with the idea, I guess, that has to be associated with chaos. Like it is so frustrating to me to say, just because men have been in positions of power in the past and dominated the hierarchy in the past, that is order, and that any other change, in this case, incorporating females into the hierarchical structure, means that we have to have chaos. I'm like, we have to have change. Sure, variability has to happen, but it doesn't have to be non-functional chaos. Like, that's too much. We're stretching things too much now. This is an overgeneralization, I guess, is what I've come to think.
So I think this is a bit of a. So first of all, it's a couple of things. When I hear masculine, I hear feminine, I don't automatically think man and woman, right? And I know I'm supposed to, and I know I have in the past, but at some point, I've not. I've kind of eased up on it. Also, I don't, with the order and chaos piece, but I don't think, when I hear the word chaos, I don't necessarily associate negativity to it, right? Because we have a similar framework and a common language. I'm thinking about irrationality and rationality. That's what I'm thinking about. And I'm looking at it as a holistic picture. I'm thinking about it as like the way that my mind works and the way that I'm bouncing through these conversations. The way I'm bouncing through these conversations almost is like chaotic. It's associations just here, there, and other. But I also had the rational framework that kind of brings the ideas together to kind of like, try to make a point in it and aim it. And that's the way that I think about it. So I don't think that chaos is a bad thing. Well, I don't think that chaos within order is a bad thing. That's the thing. And in my experience, what I will say to you is that femininity and masculinity don't go directly towards sex. The point is that when I've dealt with women leaders in my history, there has been, and I don't want to call it chaos. It's not. It's just this whole idea, and it's not just women. It's men too that do this. It's just this whole idea of, hey, we don't need a framework. We could just work it out. And I'm not. That's not my thing. I like for you to work it out within the framework. This is what I mean about holistically. And this is why I don't like the whole order versus chaos. No, order with chaos with order with chaos. Like, what's the difference? I mean, it's not, yeah, because if you're separating two things that shouldn't be separated, that's kind of,
if these things are not diametrically opposed, they are instead adjuncts. It's just like you need a framework, and you need a certain amount of that framework needs to be able to withstand the stress within these margins so that it can pivot. Like I do not everything doesn't have to a train on the train tracks. We're allowed to have cars and have like the ability to pivot. And I think there's a lot to be said for let's pivot, but let's stay on the road. Let's keep these cars on the road, but give them the ability to make the turns. I think that's the level of variability that I think is functional and beneficial. And I wish people would just clearly express the fact that it's not one or the other. It's both with view of trying to make things as functional as possible, as beneficial as possible.
yes, I agree with you. But I will add this last point. I'm not willing to operate in a realm where chaos supersedes. I'm not in that. I'm not in the world. We can open up the boundaries. We can let things free up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we're not doing chaos for chaos sake. Because to me, chaos for chaos sake, in a sense, is, and I know I'm associating all these words because it's just my association with objectivism and all this and these different frameworks. It's mysticism. It's I wake up one day, my toothbrush could be a dog, or it could be a cat, or a cup of coffee, or a bulldozer. It's like, no, it's
exactly.
It's funny. And it's like, I hear you. These things are possibilities. I'm like, in the realm of things, I hear you. Yes, possibilities exist. Likelihood, though, when we bring in probability, it's not probable. None of those things we said. Nope. Everything you said is wrong, meaning it's the most improbable. It's cool to have a time of brainstorming and be like, these are things that could possibly exist in my fantasy world. I'm like, inside your brain, you can think of a lot of things. You did. You thought of a lot of things. But those things you thought of were not helpful because they were not true. They are improbable. So we're gonna put some guardrails back on it. Like there's a time and place to think about fantastic things. If you're telling your kid a story or you want to write a fiction novel, think of all the fantastic things you want. Come up with the most magical world. Cool. But if I'm like, hey, someone's bleeding out right now and we need to figure out a way to help them, please don't come to me with your animal. It weren't bleeding though. What if it was better? I mean, it would be nice if it wasn't, but if you don't have a solution, then you need to shut the fuck up. Like I'm not saying you can't ever be here, but you certainly aren't being helpful. So enough of this.
But think of it like this also, because I think Michael Pierce made this case, and he was saying that he was talking about the difference between INTPs and INTJs, and he was saying, I think it was TE versus TI definitely, but I think it was specifically INT versus INTJ, and he was saying that INTJs or INTPs or INTJs are inventive and INTPs are innovative.
There you go. True.
Right? And
right. Then
what I get from that, and then I'm thinking of a company, a person who runs a company. And it's like, hey, we have these boundaries. We're trying to make a profit here. Or We're staying in business and we're trying to make a profit here. You all can work here and you can just pull a whole bunch of stuff out of your butt. You can go into R&D and just come up with something that's just out of the box. But it has to work within the framework of us running this company. And so that's what I mean about chaos and order. Because if we're just doing, hey, don't throw the budget out the window, we no longer have a company. We no longer have effectiveness. We are now feckless. We are now, not achieving a goal in reality that is life-giving, life-promoting, and all of these different things. Now we're just throwing stuff on the wall and seeing what sticks. We know, taking the line out of here, we know that this is not the best way to do things.
This is not when human flourishing. Do not do this again.
Yeah, but you'll have these people who will say, "Well, I don't think of the world like that," and then some of these may be brilliant people,
Right?
and at the end of the day, like you may not think of the world like that. And the first thing that's popping up into my mind is like Nikola Tesla. It's like you came up with some really great stuff, and then the rest of your life didn't necessarily add up to the things that you came up with the AC current. Yeah, but he had full conviction. He was like, "Yeah, this is what we're going to do," and that's great. But yeah, I'm not willing to put my life on the line with this chaotic. No, I mean, this is what I mean about chaos, and this is not. I don't necessarily. I mean, I don't know nothing about Tesla, but I understand when people say chaos and femininity. I probably need more than just right now to explain it, but that's what I get to. I don't. It's the vicariousness. It's the extroversion. It's the not. It's the irrational. It's the lack of a sense of self peace. It's the no framework. It's the, what is it? The willy nilly. It's the anything could be anywhere at any time. Why don't you just relax and loosen up?
Right.
It's all of that.
Oh, we can't plan. We can't plan with all the variability. We're gonna have to have something that stays stable. There's got to be a control in this fortune. There's got to be something that's not a variable in this equation. Otherwise, it's nonsense. It's
Right. Right. And at the end of the day, it still is disingenuous because even those people still have to adhere to some form of framework. And what it comes down to, the framework is your feelings. A lot of times, just the way you feel about all your instincts or your intuitions, all of those different things, you try to pawn it off as if it's just all free willing. But really, what the common denominator is you and your associations.
Right.
But I get that part, like, and I understand why. I saw a Pew Research recently when they were saying like Republican men overwhelmingly identify themselves as masculine, manly men over Democratic left-leaning men. Like left-leaning men are not into the whole masculine, manly man context, blah, blah, blah.
As I imagine so. I can imagine. It is not rewarded. Why would they do that?
It's not rewarded, but then, man, this can go a whole bunch of different places. Because to me, there are, what's the good, Don Juan men, in my opinion, who are not masculine, but are very successful or who have the capability or the possibility of being very successful with women. But to me, it's just like what Kevin Samuels was saying. It's like you can't fuck your way to masculinity. You can't fuck your way to be a man.
I have all words. Anyway, yes, it's funny to see a cultural standard versus an actual standard. They're like, well, men admire this thing because these people have received the attention and accolades they want. I'm like, yes, but that didn't actually change their character. They're not better people. They're not able to do more things. And doing other things is the reason why we make other men leaders of men. That's what we judge masculinity on, is the things you do. You have to be capable, competent, more capable actually. Otherwise, you can't be in charge.
I agree to it. Yes. I mean, I don't think I think it's nothing wrong with what you're saying. I think my mind probably floated. That's probably what just happened. I was thinking about something else. I was thinking about the tie here. And when I'm talking about the sex, I'm thinking about when I was talking about environmentalists, like, oh, the need is out there, and if I get that need, I can fill this void. And so, to me, for a lot of men, the more women that you have sex with is the way that you attempt to fill the void. And this is why I don't necessarily, and I don't identify a lack of a sense of self with manlyhood. That's really what I'm saying at the end of the day. Manlyhood is a secure sense of self, knowing what you want, knowing what you don't want, discerning. I can't be all things to all people. These are the things that I want to be. This is how I want to be these things. Oh, what about this and what about that? What about that? Those aren't in my circle of concern. You know what I'm saying?
may describe somebody else, it doesn't describe me. That's okay. I've made my
Hey.
peace with that. This is where I'm at. This is where I live.
And to me, that's, you find so many people who are always just like, oh, it's a need out there. I can be this and I can be that. And they'll be anything. They will pretend that they're anything. Just like I brought up the case about people who now, couples who pretend to be, this is not a personal, it's kind of a good representative. Couples who pretend to be polyamorous in the public eye, but aren't really polyamorous behind closed doors because they know that this is a popular topic that can bring them money. And it's like, they can shapeshift. They could be anything. They'll be somebody on television. They'll be another person to this person. They aren't a concrete, well, not a concrete. They don't have a firm set of values.
Right.
and
They're
a
not that
defined
they have
sense of
very
self.
poor or low integrity. And I cannot respect that. But I understand that it doesn't.
Right. And that's what and I don't know if, I think I would like to talk about this in the future. Maybe set something specific for that. Just because I don't think it's one thing. I don't think it's just, okay, I'm trying to, well, I know it for some people it's just like, yo, I'm trying to fill a void. But I think some people it's just a blind spot in a sense that they don't know what it is to have a sense of self.
Right. That's true. There are a lot of people who have no concept of the idea that this is what's expected, what's possible, what's achievable. But it is an achievement. It requires work. You're going to have to put some time and energy to do it.
Yeah, I mean, because you talked about identity earlier today, and it takes, because you're going to have, like you said, integrity. Once you come up with this framework to adhere to it, you're going to have integrity. There are going to be things that come up and you're going to have to decide, is this in line with my values or is this not in my values?
Right. And if it's not, what am I going to do about it?
Exactly. Or am I just going to go along with how everything is working? Or, this is to me why principle is so important, because then it gives you a standard to make a decision. And if your principles are good, it gives you some kind of wiggle room too, because you shouldn't be picking up different principles every time. It's like you're just not adhering. You're not adhering to anything.
I follow this rule, but sometimes when I feel like it's sort of kind of. So it's not a rule then. So this is just like.
Right. So order, masculinity, chaos, femininity. I'm not off board on that. I'm not over. I'm not away from that. I just think we need to. I'm not saying you. I'm saying that we people need to tighten that up a bit. We definitely need to tighten that up a bit, and because also I think the chaos piece is almost like in pole position in society right now for me.
Yeah, we are into an extreme.
Yeah, and to me, it's the job of the orderly people to open up the boundaries and stop being so strict and being so narrow. Because the answer at the end of the day for me is order. Let's not get it. Order first.
Nothing else works. It's like we've had anarchy before. Even the anarchists were like, okay, this is too much anarchy. Nothing is working. I am going to implement order with my fists. Something is going to go my way because I tell it to. I'm like, see, order. Even they were like, we can't have just that.
Yeah. And so, but the people, then let's stop going too far with the order. And really,
Yes.
this relates to the conversation that we had, and when I was saying like, don't take the ideas too far. Take them only as far as they need to be.
Yes.
Do not project out too far, because what you're doing is you're totally in the imaginary world now. You have no
Yes.
evidence for.
We don't have evidence for, and it's fun to do R&D, but you have to you have to do some risk management here. You can't just like commit 100% into the ether without any breaks. Like, don't drive off the cliff. Let's get close to the cliff. Look over. Maybe one person can do a little reconnaissance, but we don't have to drive off to figure out what's. Let's do this stepwise, please.
Good. Yes, and that's difficult because there is. People just don't. I don't know why it is that I'm just trying to kind of articulate the way I'm seeing the world. If I'm coming from a perceptual world to the conceptual world, and I'm saying like, hey, all of these concepts better relate to these perceptions.
There we go.
And if they don't, then you've gone too far. Go down the road until you see the end of perceptions. You see concepts, and then you still see perceptions in the back. But if you don't see perceptions anymore, then you've gone too far.
On the rein it in. Let some more things we got to do over here.
So, because it's at the end of the day, and this relates to why people get mad, is all about men and women and these these ideas. Like, it's your fault. You're the only person who we can look to. If you aren't managing the people well, if you're not giving them space to express themselves within a framework, it's your fault that they now have blown out the walls of the framework. We need order, and we need you to put the guards in the right places so people can feel free within order.
Mm-hmm.
This is your job.
It's literally why we hired you, literally why we moved you this position and gave you this authority. You have to do this way.
Yes. And we need that. And it does not help us to just be super strict for no reason. It doesn't.
No, nobody win.
No. But it doesn't help us to have total full out chaos. It doesn't help us to do that either. So
yes, extremes are helpful, but some of these extremes are known. We know this is not helpful because we have tried it this way.
Yes. But I think people are just so fearful. It's like, well, what if I let everything go, then what could happen? And to me, this is why we need to bring the conceptual and the perceptual closer. And you need to start being comfortable with that. When you call it a gray area, it's just things are happening so fast. It seems like a gray area,
right?
But
How we interpret it, like it's impossible. I hear you. It does seem hard, and you definitely don't know if it's ever worked. But it does seem like someone's making it work. So let's do some research and expand our definition of possible.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I want to see. And yeah, the chaos thing, I can't. I'm not gonna be. I can't deal with the people who just think like, oh, this thing could be anything. It could be this, this, that. Wait, what? I need frameworks.
When they use that as a virtue, like, look how crazy I can make this. I can make this completely chaotic where nothing makes sense. I'm like, you can do that, and that makes me a good person. See how incredibly creative I am? Like, you are really creative, but see, you can't use your creativity to do anything helpful. So that makes you, and this is key now, useless. Like, I want to feel specific now that you failed at your responsibility to be a human. You didn't take your mind and use it to make something useful or better. And so if you're not going to apply your mind to reality, then you're not going to get any of the benefits of reality. That's one of the things I can't stand about artists No, I'll stop. Let's just say that I really wish people would apply their minds to more useful pursuits by finding problems they could solve in reality for both themselves and others. That'd be really, really great. We had more of those things.
Yes. Damn, I was going to go a lot of places with what you just said. But then you hit me with the artist piece. And I'm like, that's the perfect example. This is what I mean. We're just not operating the same. I didn't want to have to pull this up. Cause I'm jump in a second, but I just want to pull this thing. This is, and I hope I didn't read this before, but this came out of here as well. But let me just, hopefully this will kind of bring you to, because this is related to the introverted, extroversion, introverted, extroverted view of life from a rational standpoint, in my opinion. And this is kind of Jung's perspective and a little bit of my perspective on top of it. Because he's more or less saying, like, to give a little background, his thing was before, when there was the division between the empiricists and the rationalists, then, what's his name? Abelard developed conceptualism, where it's like we had the thing exists out there, but then we had this definition of the thing too. So these things work in tandem. And he was saying, like, well, Abelard's solve to the problem was an intellectual problem, was an intellectual solve. So he showed bias there too. But what the hell else are we supposed to do? This is pretty much what he's saying. It's like, we got to pick one of these sides. And so that's what I mean about order, concepts, straight lines, picking a side. Yes, there will be order, but got to leave some space for people to have that freedom, right? And so it's kind of talking about what I just explained a bit. And it's like this dichotomy not only illuminates the diverse ways introverts and extroverts relate to the world, but also the challenges in bringing their perspectives, especially in manners where logical and moral judgments intersect. Introverts deeply intertwine the logical and moral dimensions of yes or no, right or wrong, with each decision reflecting a broader principle stance. For these decisions are more about navigating the concrete realities of the moment, where the universality of principles may take a back seat to the pragmatics of action. This disparity highlights the necessity for mutual understanding and respect for differing approaches to life, acknowledging that both perspectives bring valuable insights into the collective discourse on ethics and rationality. It's like Jung acknowledges this contribution of extroverts in modern society. Quote, we can, of course, that the extrovert is socially useful, that he has made great contributions to the progress of human society, and so on. But any analysis of his resources and motives will always yield a negative result, because his specific value lies in the reciprocal relation to the object and not in himself. The relation to the object is one of those imponderables that intellectual formulation can never grasp. So it goes on, and so it's like Jung makes this point. So this is Jung quoted again. Intellectual criticism cannot help proceeding analytically and bringing the observed type to full clarity by pinning down its motives and aims, which I'm saying that this is not we should be doing. But this, as we have said, results in a picture that amounts to a caricature of the psychology of the extrovert. And anyone who believes he has found the right attitude to an extrovert on the basis of such a description would be astonished to see how the actual personality turns the description into a mockery. Such a one-sided view of things makes any adaptation to the extrovert impossible, meaning that just let them do them. We're not doing what they're doing. We're just letting them do them. Right.
Apply a long-term standard to a short-term thinker.
Exactly. So in order to do him justice, thinking about him must be altogether excluded. While for his part, the extrovert can properly adapt to the introvert only when he is prepared to accept his mental contents in themselves, regardless of their practical utility. Intellectual analysis cannot help but attributing to the extrovert every conceivable design, stratagem, ulterior motive, and so forth, though they have no actual existence, but at most are shadowy effects leaking from the unconscious background. Just want to get a couple more pieces real quick because I think this is it. And so I'm just like, while Young offers a detailed explanation of the limitations of the intellectual criticism in accurately assessing extroverts, let us focus on elaborate on the final part of his statement. The phrase intellectual analysis cannot help attributing every conceivable design, stratagem, ulterior motive, and so forth to the extrovert illustrates how intellectual scrutiny tends to project its own interpretative framework onto the subject, thereby creating an image that may diverge significantly from the subject's true nature. This projection by analytical thinking often introduces unnecessary and unwarranted assumptions, constructing a narrative of complex motivations or strategies where simple and more direct intentions may exist. And then I get into the overgeneralizations. So for instance, consider the tendencies to make overgeneralizations about individuals based on a single aspect of their identity or behavior. One may unjustly assume a gay person a pedophile, or they may deem someone who eschews cultural norms to be a bad person simply because their actions or identities diverge from the norm. These prejudiced judgments, much like the caricatures created by intellectual criticism of extroverts, arise from an inability or unwillingness to appreciate the depth and diversity of human experience. They reveal a failure to understand that deviating from the norm is not inherently indicative of malintent or moral failing, but is often a manifestation of genuine individuality and personal choice. Such examples underscore the critical importance of approaching each person with an active, inquisitive mind from unwarranted assumptions to truly grasp the richness of their character and motivations. I think this is one more piece. I don't know. So it's like the phrase shadowy effects, and hold with me because I think this is relevant, right? It's like, is the phrase shadowy effects leaking in from the unconscious background implies that if an extrovert does exhibit complex motivations or designs, these are often not the result of deliberate or conscious planning, but are more likely incidental, arising from subconscious impulses. They are not central to the extrovert's approach to life. They are peripheral, almost accidental, right? And so my whole point in saying all of this is that rational people ease up. That's my whole point, because you're trying to take it too far. Take it, and this is why I like ethics, or what I consider to be ethics and governance. Just don't let yourself be put in harm's way, and stop worrying about what could be down the road. You have to adhere, and part of the reason why what could be down the road is a harm to you is because you're not letting the people learn how to operate on their own. You've made them dumb because you solved every problem. And now when they start wilding out, then it becomes a detriment to you because you've created a group of people who never had to deal with things. So it's not helpful. It's not helpful to always be saying, oh man, we got to do this like this and shrink the boundaries, shrink the boundaries, shrink the boundaries. It's not helpful to anybody. It's just not. And get it, it's going to cause you to, it is going to cause you to make different decisions. You are going to have be a little bit tougher and let people deal with the consequences, or you're going to have to not like people are going to have some issue. Like they're going to have troubles, and you can't fix everything for them because it's not helping them deal with trouble.
And you got to play some defense now. You have to
Yes.
be more aware of like, hey, people are going to F up and they're going to end up in my lane. You're going to have to be aware that this is a risk.
Yes. That's a thing too. But at the end of the day, long term, that is a better way to deal with this thing. Because other than that,
Well,
you say what?
I hear you. It develops people. They have to, They have to get used to exercising this muscle, otherwise they can't get strong.
And that's my main point. And because I think, and even myself being one of those, I think I'm probably on the more rational side. Like, because you hear me trying to be prescriptive. You hear me trying, I'm guardrail heavy. But like, I'm just saying that open up the guardrails. Oh, we can't let the people do this. Yeah, you can. Why you can't let them do that? Because one day they may hurt themselves. Maybe. Or maybe one day they may hurt us. Well, yeah, okay. That's a fair thing. Maybe one day they will hurt us. Is this in really in time? Is this probable? Is it? We know it's possible, but is it probable? And at what level?
Decrease that risk. It's like without prescribing rules for all of society. Like there may be other ways to navigate this than down societal enforcement of rules.
I think you're going to get that, but it depends on how it comes out, man. It really depends. It's about where we put the guardrails. There will be guardrails in a good society. Where do we put them? Why do we put them where we put them? And that's my point.
Yeah. When is our hazard for moving them? Yep.
Hey, man. So I was trying to get that out. It's probably a bigger point, but maybe we can.
Cool. And it's definitely something that's worthwhile to, discuss in further detail to be like, this is the thing we've seen. These are the examples when it went well. And this is like, applying it to a real situation helps create the clarity that we need. So yeah, maybe next time we'll do a little something that.
I like that. But let me, because I always got to try to pop one more in it. That is why I like ethics, because that's the only place where any of this matters. This is the only place where because I want to live my life fully. And the only boundary is really my interaction with others. Like, if it's not my interaction with others, I just die. It's just me.
Yeah. That's equal. You in reality, just like, well, this is where the human beings stop. Apparently, can't leave in the fire too long. Lesson.
Right. And you just sit there like, dang, he died. That was
a little Organ Trail moment. You have died of dysentery.
We got him. Dang, that's old. Oh, man. That's what's up, man. My earbuds is like dying. That's why I'm like getting distracted. Like, you need to charge. Oh, man, but that's cool, man. That is a good discussion. Liked it. Anything else you got before we roll out?
Like, we're good right now.
All right, cool.